The movie starts, and in the distance, a car makes its way down a long and winding driveway. As the door opens, a stream of light filters in, and in walks Malcolm, accompanied by Marie. He glides towards the bar, while she disappears into the bathroom. Malcolm deftly takes a single cube of ice, cracks open a fresh bottle of liquor, and takes a sip. The melodies of music begin to trickle out of the speakers, and Malcolm hums along with the rhythm as he surveys his surroundings. He compliments Marie, he is overcome by her beauty and shares his adoration with her, who thanks him. With the music still resounding, Malcolm launches himself into a euphoric dance, reveling in the joy and bliss of the moment. Meanwhile, Marie heads to the kitchen, sets a pot of water to boil, and takes a cigarette to the veranda. The two meet again in the kitchen, and Malcolm continues to sing and moves towards her, spinning her around and planting a kiss on her lips. He lifts his glass to the air, exclaiming his pride as a reference to the masterpiece that he wrote, directed, and premiered to great acclaim. He mentions that the last minutes of the film, in particular, moved the audience to tears, and Malcolm basks in the memory of that success. As he regales Marie with tales of his encounters with critics, Malcolm is struck by a particular comment from a girl. She dubs him a trifecta of legendary filmmakers. Malcolm jokes about appending William Wyler's name to his register, and looks at Marie as she stands upon the veranda, a vision of poise and beauty, raptly attentive to his words. Malcolm delves into the intricate tale of his film, one that lays bare the arduous journey of a young woman seeking to liberate herself from the shackles of addiction. A narrative that illuminates the labyrinthine depths of human sentiment, particularly the burdensome weight of shame and guilt. Despite the presence of a black woman in the lead role engendering certain obstacles, Malcolm fervently affirms that his film is not about race. With a feeling of irritation that stirs within him, Malcolm voices his vexation at the journalists who, in his view, lack the skill of abstaining from inserting race into their reviews, even when it is not warranted. He laments over how certain critics have already delivered their verdict on the film with a political tint, and how he yearns to bask in the bliss of artistic expression without the burden of political undertones. Marie, a discerning and insightful companion, reminds him of his upcoming project, the Angela Davis biography, which undeniably carries a politically charged message. Malcolm, in acquiescence to this fact, remains steadfast in his assertion that not everything he does must be viewed through a political prism, solely because he is a black artist. Even though Angela Davis, a faithful advocate for civil rights, may contest this viewpoint, Malcolm is unwavering in his conviction. Malcolm and Marie converse at length, while Malcolm longs to create a Lego film. But Marie suspects there's more to it than that and doubts his sincerity. She suspects his aspirations to be mere folly, a fleeting fancy, and asks him to stop complaining. Malcolm, in turn, lays bare his soul, admitting to the lack of favorable reviews he has received thus far. With a heavy heart, he concedes that Marie is right and agrees to cease his complaints. As Marie retreats to the kitchen, Malcolm gazes after her, entranced by her every movement. He asks about her evening, and she responds with warmth and kindness. Malcolm seizes the opportunity to approach her. He showers her neck, spine, and buttocks with tender kisses, and declares himself lucky to be her man. Marie, her tone as dry as dust, demurs that such flattery is sweet. Undeterred, Malcolm continues his advances, his lips pressing against her tights, his love pouring forth in ardent confessions. Amid this passion, Marie asks whether he desires salted or unsalted butter, to which Malcolm responds with the fervor that he desires her above all else. Marie's smile seems but a mask, a feigned gesture, and Malcolm senses that it's fake. He presses her for the source of her discontent, but Marie denies any distress, retreating to the fridge to retrieve some ingredients for the meal she is preparing. Still insistent, Malcolm assures her that he is skilled in the art of reading her moods, and wonders if it is the joke that Anthony made that has vexed her. But Marie is adamant in her denial. Malcolm posits that perhaps it is Taylor who is the source of her vexation, that she behaves with a certain diffidence in the presence of the glamorous movie star. But Marie refuses his assumption. Her voice is sharp and her corrections swift. Malcolm, keen to amend his sentence, endeavors to continue his discourse, but Marie interjects, demanding an explanation for his insinuations. It is then that Malcolm divulges that Taylor is on the brink of a career as a movie star. Yet, Marie, with a piercing glare, warns him against tempting fate with words that might bring misfortune to her. In the bustling kitchen, Marie and Malcolm stand in a silent exchange. The clatter of pots and pans creates a rhythmic sound in the air as Marie deftly prepares her meal. Malcolm's eyes are fixed on her, watching her every move. As they stand together, Marie confides in Malcolm that she has chosen to refrain from speaking with Taylor due to the absence of any amicable words. But Malcolm sees beyond the surface, acknowledging that Taylor possesses an acuity that allows her to observe the subtleties of Maria's behavior. This, in turn, leaves Maria feeling vulnerable, as Taylor can discern the disparity between her true self and the persona she portrays to others. Maria continues to tend to the meal, blowing gently on the noodles to cool them before tasting them to ensure they are cooked to perfection. With a final stir, she turns off the stove and the kitchen falls silent. Yet Malcolm senses an unspoken anger brewing within Marie, imploring her to confide in him. As she sets the bowl on the table, Malcolm expresses his concern for her well-being, declaring his inability to rest knowing that she is upset. But Maria, with a weariness that only comes from a long simmering frustration, implores him to postpone any discussion until the next day. They make their way down the hallway to the bedroom, and Malcolm presses further, seeking to understand Maria's perceptual tendency to tarnish moments of joy with negativity. Marie unclasps her jewels, and Malcolm strides towards her, a tempest brewing in his eyes. She gathers a bundle of garments and sets off towards the laundry chamber, with Malcolm hot on her heels. Accusations spew forth from his lips, blaming her for twisting minor details into unpleasant things. But Maria, with unyielding grace, raises her voice to remind him of a great detail he had neglected, a simple act of gratitude. Malcolm protests that he had thanked her before, and that the omission was a mere oversight. Yet Marie sees it as a symbol of their entire relationship, an emblem of his disregard for her worth. Malcolm casts Marie's claims aside, deeming her irrational and delusional. Marie, with an unwavering conviction, counters that he is being melodramatic and exaggerated. Malcolm, in a moment of sorrow, offers an apology, admitting that he felt remorseful during the movie. But Marie's heart remains resolute, and she declares that his words cannot undo the hurt he has caused. Malcolm cannot fathom how easily she can change her mind, but Marie maintains that it is simple. She adds that at the gathering they attended, everyone spoke of how Malcolm forgot to mention her, leaving her disdained and overlooked. She affirms to him that it is not just about the forgotten thanks, but how he regards her contribution to their relationship and his work, especially the film he crafted about her life. With an air of finality, she strides toward the bedroom and shuts the door with a resounding thud. Malcolm is caught off guard and bewildered, his mind in a state of disarray. He moves towards the kitchen table and sits down, ready to feast on the creamy mac and cheese before him. But as he indulges in a few bites, his emotions suddenly surge, and he cries out, declaring that Marie is a woman of an unstable mind. Malcolm continues to gorge himself on the mac and cheese, yet his concerns for Marie's mental well-being persist. He cannot help but ponder in what alternate realm the character of his movie could be based on Marie. And suddenly, Marie appears before him, questioning his behavior of bellowing and belittling her while he indulges in his food. At first, Malcolm denies any wrongdoing, but Marie accuses him of verbally abusing her while he mindlessly munches away at his mac and cheese. He continues to eat, oblivious to the gravity of the situation, as Marie expresses her disgust with his callous and thoughtless actions. Marie is greatly surprised that Malcolm can so easily compartmentalize his emotions and abuse her while savoring his meal. Malcolm takes another bite of his food, brushing off Marie's concerns as she accuses him of constantly catering to the needs of others while neglecting her. Marie reveals her feelings of estrangement from Malcolm, explaining that actors, producers, crew members, and even fictional characters receive more empathy and respect from him than she does. She feels peculiar about the situation and voices her doubts to Malcolm. Malcolm attempts to explain himself, clarifying that the character is not based solely on Marie, but rather on a combination of many things and people. He explains that the character is a young addict trying to recover from addiction, and though Marie's experiences played a role in the character's creation, she was not the inspiration for the character. Thus, the conflict rages on, as the two struggle to find common ground amidst the maelstrom of emotions that swirls around them like a tempestuous sea. During their discourse, Marie and Malcolm engage in a lively exchange regarding their relationship. Malcolm proffers that many individuals are present to offer him solace. However, Marie dissents, asserting that once a person feels cherished, they are swiftly forgotten. A perplexed Malcolm asks whether Marie intends to withdraw her affection if he fails to apologize. Yet Marie clarifies that her intent is not to elicit an apology or receive recognition for his cinematic triumphs. Rather, she muses on the possibility of the film's caliber had they not been united in love. Malcolm concedes that the film would not possess the same luster without her involvement, and Marie finds satisfaction in his response. Subsequently, they engage in playful banter, teasing one another until Malcolm asks if he can kiss her. Initially hesitant, Marie playfully engages in wrestling with Malcolm before their lips meet in a passionate embrace. While they bask in their affection, Marie counsels Malcolm to remain grounded and not be swayed by the praises of his work. As they continue to joke with each other, they passionately kiss, relishing the unbridled passion that binds them together. As Marie emulates Malcolm, her face assumes a solemnity befitting her discourse on the original title of the movie. From her lips spills a revelation that the studio has altered the name from 40 legos and a mule. With a prescient eye, Marie proclaims that while Malcolm's tweets will be retweeted by his new group of Twitter followers who will hail his work, the masses beyond will not grasp the movie's significance. Her intuition tells her that protests and boycotts are inevitable, and she accuses Malcolm of bringing politicization to the world of legos. A fear grips her that both the studio and Malcolm will start to question the value of the film. To inspire him, Marie assures Malcolm that his beloved from the Los Angeles Times will back him and encourage the public to view the film, regardless of their understanding of the message. Perhaps, she suggests, Malcolm could revolutionize the world by making a biography of Angela Davis with legos. Malcolm's laughter fills the air as he kisses her body. Marie, in pursuit of self-expression, delves into her acting profession, and Malcolm commends her talent, insisting that she could shine in the right role. Nevertheless, Marie suggests that no one can script for her as Malcolm. She departs, leaving the discussion unfinished, and goes towards the kitchen. She lights a cigarette and starts to smoke as she opens the door of the veranda. Malcolm casts his eyes through the window, where Marie stands, her back towards him. In the reflection, we observe Malcolm pressing play on a song, which resonates through the air. As the melody reaches Marie's ears, she indulges in a drag of her cigarette. We linger on her face for a moment. She attempts to wipe away the tears that overwhelm her. She glimpses back, seeing Malcolm seated in the living room. She departs, but not before facing Malcolm through the glass. Malcolm sways to the song, singing along softly, intoxicated by spirits, and suddenly realizes that Marie has vanished from sight. With fervent urgency, he rushes outside, his gaze trained upon the verdant hills and trees that surround the abode. His voice resounds, calling out Marie's name again and again, yet to no avail. He searches for her, moving along the exterior of the house, the windows alight with a warm glow but devoid of any sign of Marie. He moves towards the bedroom, still shouting her name, but alas, there is no response. The bathroom proves empty as well, and he strides forth yet again, bellowing her name into the night. In the hallway, there is no trace of Marie. His nerves grow more and more as he calls out her name with ever-increasing urgency. Returning to the living room, he surveys his surroundings with mounting anxiety. Yet, Marie reappears in the kitchen, and Malcolm demands to know where she vanished. She explains that she had merely gone to relieve herself and that he had overreacted. When questioned as to why she had not used the bathroom, Marie elaborates that growing up in a place without a backyard made her cherish the novelty of being able to do so. She then accuses Malcolm of being the most demanding man she has ever dated, while simultaneously being the least jealous. She declares that she could drape herself over another man's arm, and he would not suspect any impropriety. When Malcolm inquires whose arm she had been on, Marie dismisses the question, insisting that it was of no consequence. She argues that while a lack of jealousy is generally considered desirable, in his case, it teetered on the brink of indifference. In a tumultuous scene that unfolds within the confines of their living room, Malcolm and Marie engage in a heated exchange. Amidst her mounting frustration, Marie voices her dissatisfaction with Malcolm, pointing out that he does not truly desire for her to lead a life that exists independently of his own. Despite Malcolm's attempts to calm her down, Marie persists, asserting that she is merely making a simple observation. Concerned for the welfare of their relationship, Malcolm cautions her against proceeding further down this treacherous path. However, Marie challenges him, steadfast in her beliefs, while he insists that she is not thinking rationally. As Marie grows increasingly defensive, she charges Malcolm with failing to appreciate the sacrifices she has made for their union. To her dismay, Malcolm replies by ridiculing her, casting her as little more than an emotional crutch. Tensions escalate as Marie explodes in anger, hurling a command that Malcolm departs to the depths of hell. Yet Malcolm remains adamant, striving to justify his actions and the role he has played in Marie's life throughout the journey of their relationship. Despite Marie's persistent demands for his departure, Malcolm refuses to leave the room, urging her to desist from laying the blame for her misery solely at his feet. Malcolm approaches Marie while she sits on the bed, her face streaming with tears. Undeterred, he proceeds to speak his mind, only to depart for the kitchen a while later to prepare himself a drink. And yet, before long, Marie follows in his wake, driven to converse once more. She reminds Malcolm of his unwavering support during her darkest hours, though she is insistent that he be honest about his motivations for staying by her side and fighting her battles. In her estimation, Malcolm viewed her as little more than grist for his literary mill, a tragedy of his devising that he could watch unfold so long as he remained present. In her bitter verbal attack, Marie accuses him of being a fraud, incapable of generating original content, and instead merely aping the works of others. With a bitter sneer, she needles him, inquiring how he had managed to give voice to the character of Amani, before accusing him of appropriating the voices of others without their consent. As Marie moves around restlessly, her anger undiminished, she continues to throw scorn upon Malcolm, casting aspersions on his ability to pen anything fresh or personal. In her estimation, he lacks self-reflection to recognize his flaws and inadequacies. She scoffs at the notion that he might one day join the ranks of illustrious directors with something vital and personal to express. She questions the truthfulness of Malcolm's film, challenging the provenance of its shame and guilt, and pointing out the privilege that he has enjoyed throughout his life. In response, Malcolm appears stricken, wounded by the sharpness of Marie's words. As the words flow from Malcolm's lips, Marie feels herself slowly succumbing to their weight. She yearns for him to cease, but alas, he is not even close to being done. Malcolm accuses her of taking pleasure in her degradation and pain, insinuating that her desires are neither healthy nor normal. The weight of his words presses down on her, threatening to break her spirit. With a brave effort, Marie tries to maintain her poise, but she eventually succumbs to the emotional turmoil, and tears stream down her face, alone in the bathtub. Suddenly, the door creaks open, and Malcolm strides in again, his words like a sword unsheathed, aimed at her heart. He decries her selfishness and cowardice, accusing her of trying to undermine him. He makes it clear that he does not require her validation and that her efforts at control are futile. But amidst the storm, a glimmer of light pierces the darkness as he professes his unwavering love for her, blemishes and struggles notwithstanding. He seeks to make amends for his hurtful words, and he invites her to celebrate with him. As he departs, Marie continues to weep, her tears falling like rain, her heart heavy with the weight of their conflict. As the next scene unfolds, Malcolm ambles towards the kitchen, his walk relaxed and measured, his eyes glazed over with a heavy, contemplative gaze. He pours himself a drink with a deliberate hand, the ice clinking against the glass like melodic percussion. He sets the drink down on the counter and reaches for the music. Meanwhile, Marie submerges herself underwater, lost in her thoughts. Malcolm takes his leave outside with a cigarette between his lips, the smoke curling up into the air. Malcolm sits in deep contemplation, unable to unravel the tangled web of emotions inside him, when Marie unexpectedly enters the kitchen. He doesn't notice her until she catches his gaze, and they share a charged moment full of unspoken words and emotions. Soon after, Marie steps outside and deftly takes the cigarette from between Malcolm's fingers. She sits beside him, the two of them sitting in silence as the music plays in the background, and she takes a drag from the cigarette. Malcolm's thoughts are turbulent. His pride and his lack of preparation make it difficult for him to bridge the gap between himself and Marie. They sit there, the music a comforting presence between them, until Malcolm gets up to go inside. He leaves Marie alone, sitting in silence as she listens to the sound of Malcolm muttering in the living room. As he comes back into the room, his frustration palpable, Marie asks him what's going on. Malcolm tells her about the review in the Los Angeles Times, and his inability to access it due to a paywall. Marie asks him about when it was posted and if anyone sent it to him, but Malcolm is too preoccupied to answer fully, rummaging through his pockets for his wallet. She suggests he look for his credit card on his phone, but Malcolm rejects the idea, claiming he doesn't trust the technology. Finally, he finds his wallet and begins the process of accessing the review, the sweat beading on his forehead as he waits. He holds up his credit card to his phone, its metallic surface gleaming in the light, and begins to read the review aloud. The words praise his cinematic tour de force. Despite the positive review, Malcolm expresses his disdain for the reviewer, questioning who would want to watch his film. Marie points out the review's flattering language, and Malcolm reluctantly agrees. Marie adds and describes the film as black and jazzy, the words lingering in the air like a sweet melody. As Malcolm continues reading the film synopsis on his phone, Marie lounges on the couch. Malcolm expresses his boredom with the synopsis, noting that the only reason the technical details were mentioned was that he mentioned them at the premiere. He goes on to explain that the film centers around a woman of color and her struggles with the American healthcare system. Malcolm gets up and paces around the room, arguing with Marie about the film's political nature. He claims that political films are exhausting and that the Los Angeles Times critic who called the film political is a half-wit. He points out the critic's praise of his subversion of the white savior trope, arguing that the critic misunderstood his intentions and that the film's black protagonist is what subverts the trope. Marie laughs at Malcolm's frustration and agrees that nothing in filmmaking is truly necessary, but rather it's all about what the filmmakers want. In this age of constant change, identities shift like tides, and to anchor oneself to any one label is folly. Malcolm questions the gaze of men and wonders about the motivations of those who create. What force drives an artist to craft beauty, and what mystery lies at the heart of art in cinema? Yet, even as he praises the power of art, Malcolm condemns the industry that surrounds it. For too long, the film world has been the domain of the pale and the male, stifling the dreams of those who would portray a life unlike their own. Let us lift the veil of inequality and allow every artist to dream and create, unbound by the chains of identity or convention. Malcolm laments the stagnant state of the film industry, which produces only safe and formulaic movies. His soul longs for a rebellion against the puritanical, moralistic, and academic nonsense that holds sway over the industry. However, Marie, mocking his outburst, joins him in unbridled laughter. Although Malcolm admits to feeling tired of the constant fighting, Marie reminds him that filmmaking is a profession that demands conflict. Teasingly, she suggests that if he had a distaste for battle, he should have pursued the arts of painting or pottery. Malcolm concedes that her statement rings true, acknowledging that filmmaking is a mainstream and capitalistic art form. The two discuss how even the most radical filmmakers are not truly revolutionary, and how Hollywood presents a particular image to the public. Despite his frustration, Malcolm confesses his love for Marie, who warns him not to manipulate her. Their passion explodes in a fervent kiss, and Malcolm takes Marie onto the carpet as they continue to entwine in their ardor. In this fleeting moment, he presses his lips against hers with fervor, and they entangle in a passionate embrace. Malcolm breaks away from the kiss, and with a heart brimming with affection, he confesses his adoration for this very moment, revealing that he has been yearning for it for quite some time. He steals another kiss from her, and then informs her that he must excuse himself to the bathroom. Marie nods her approval, and as he walks away, they exchange a knowing smile. As Malcolm stands at the sink and washes his hands, a smile plays on his lips as he reminisces on the blissful moment he just shared with his beloved. But the smile quickly fades from his face when he catches sight of Marie's face. Her countenance, once radiant and joyful, now bears a look of disappointment, She poses a question to him, and his energy wanes as he listens to her speak. She inquires as to why he did not cast her in his latest film, the one he had initially written for her. Malcolm's defenses rise, assuming that Marie is driven by envy. But she swiftly rebuts his assumption, explaining that her anguish stems from the realization that she can no longer tell her story, for he has already done it with another leading lady. She blames the fact that they could not have done it together, believing that she would have done a better job since she had lived the tale. Malcolm reminds her that she had renounced acting and had been disinclined to audition when he had asked her. Nonetheless, Marie persists, asserting that nothing meant more to her than being a part of this film. Malcolm is accused by Marie of being a narcissistic liar and intolerable, charging that he has cast her as the victim. All of a sudden, he storms off to the garden, leaving Marie to shout after him. She insists that if Malcolm had only given her a role in his film, it would have been a truer reflection of reality, less about him and more about the authenticity of the story. Malcolm, however, argues that authenticity is a matter of perspective and interpretation, not strict adherence to the facts. The argument grows more intense, Marie becomes more agitated, and she finally reaches the limits of her patience, screaming in a fit of fury that she despises Malcolm, to which he coldly returns her hatred in kind. With emotions running high, Marie retreats to the bathroom while Malcolm seeks solace in the garden. Later on, Marie reemerges, her state of distress palpable, and she reaches for a cutting tool. Malcolm, alarmed, demands to know what she intends to do, to which she replies, in a trembling voice, that she needs her pills. Tension hangs heavy in the air for a moment before Marie laughs, finally sets down the blade, and walks away, leaving Malcolm to ponder the fragility of their relationship. Malcolm strides into the bedroom, and his eyes fall upon Marie, splayed across the bed. He wears an expression of mixed emotions, contending with the tumultuous thoughts that plague him. He confesses to her that she is the most vexatious and intractable human being he has ever met, yet his love for her defies all reason. Malcolm's moods swing from a desire to tear her head off to kissing her 1,000 times over. As the words spill forth, Malcolm proposes to Marie, asking for her hand in marriage. But she rebuffed his advances, citing a lack of inclination. Still, he persists, insisting they embark upon the journey of marriage and divorce with equal fervor. Marie remains firm in her denial, yet a mutual smile betrays the underlying attraction that exists between them. In a sudden move, Malcolm scoops up Marie and places her in his lap, accusing her of inciting the madness that rages within him. Their lips meet in a fiery kiss, and Marie proceeds to unbutton the top of Malcolm's pants. Marie shares her disdain for the scene that the critic deemed worthy of criticism, revealing her alternate vision. Malcolm seeks to put off this discussion until later, but Marie insists, urging him to contemplate the reasons for their differences. Despite her request, Malcolm stands his ground, firmly declining to indulge in such speculations, even as Marie's lips continue to tempt him. As the next scene unfolds, Marie casts a gentle smile toward Malcolm and asks if she may pose a question to him. Her curiosity is piqued, and she wishes to comprehend the rationale behind his artistic vision in a particular film sequence. In response, Malcolm, with a playful twinkle in his eye, jokes that Marie can be somewhat vexing and wonders aloud if she will retain such concerns well into her 70s. With a measured tone, Marie invites Malcolm to consider why she perceives the scene differently from him. She suggests that he may have focused excessively on the violence depicted in the shot, and perhaps missed the potential to explore the complex consequences that the depicted actions could evoke. Seeking clarification, Malcolm inquires as to the precise nature of Marie's vision. She explains that a shift in emphasis would have had a more profound impact on the audience, eliciting a greater emotional response. Malcolm, however, counters by suggesting that such a change would only resonate with a select few. Marie, in turn, wonders if the scene might have been approached differently if he had been a woman. Malcolm reacts with irritation, rejecting the notion that identity should be used as a benchmark for assessing creative choices. He maintains that the choices that are made are based on tangible factors, rather than intangible and hypothetical assessments of one's identity. As the tension between them grows, Marie defends her position, citing her investment in the relationship and her desire for the film to succeed. Malcolm, feeling increasingly frustrated, retreats to the bathroom. Marie interprets the exchange as a fight, and she feels that it is the worst one they have ever had. She chastises Malcolm for reveling in his argument and laying the blame at her feet. In the end, Malcolm returns to bed, and Marie reiterates her opinion, asserting that the film could have been equally impactful without a particular scene. Malcolm chuckles, and Marie calls him a moron. Though the words may be sharp, the tension between them begins to dissipate, and they settle into a more peaceful understanding. Next, as Marie addresses Malcolm, she notes that his tendencies may have contributed to his loss, yet she acknowledges that he simply could not resist the urge to speak. She confesses that, were she to find herself in a similar predicament, she would remain tight-lipped, for revealing all would cause her more pain than him. Marie then reveals her recent disappointment with their intimate relationship, explaining that 15 minutes prior, Malcolm had taken things too far, extinguishing any and all pleasure she may have experienced. In his defense, Malcolm claims that they were engaged in a heated argument, and that he had to fight with all he had. Marie, however, is unconvinced by his justification. pointing out that his words had no relevance to their disagreement and instead served to disgust her. She unleashes a barrage of insults, labeling him a swine, a brute who soils his bed. As Malcolm laughs off her insults, Marie reveals that she finds solace in the shared experience of Karen, a journalist from the Los Angeles Times, whom she regards as a kindred spirit, for they both seek refuge from his abusive personality. Malcolm retaliates, accusing Marie of hypocrisy, and pointing out her history of bizarre and unconventional relationships. Marie, however, stands her ground, insisting that she need not be aware of Malcolm's past, as she loves him unconditionally and cherishes the enigma of the unknown. Meanwhile, Malcolm remains silent, attentive to her words. As Marie confides her fears to Malcolm, she reveals a deep-seated insecurity about her ability to fulfill the role of his ideal partner. Her reflection in the mirror is a source of self-doubt, and she fears that Malcolm's mind may wander to other potential lovers. Despite her relentless efforts to impress him, she perceives a lack of appreciation on his part. Malcolm attempts to withdraw, but Marie seizes his attention and persists in expressing her feelings. She posits that Malcolm's apparent lack of jealousy is not due to his trust in her but rather to his disregard for the enigmatic allure of their relationship. Marie contends that his self-absorption prevents him from engaging in introspection and the pursuit of personal growth that would make him a better companion. To her, Malcolm's current state is fixed, and he shows no inclination to adapt or evolve. She admonishes him that his arrogance will lead him to a life of isolation, where he is unable to empathize with others and consider their perspectives. Marie emphasizes the unpredictability of life and the importance of accepting that control over one's reality is limited. She cautions Malcolm that his refusal to acknowledge this reality will leave him with a lack of experience to draw from. In a somber moment, Marie declares that she stands alone, urging Malcolm to elevate his game. She states that life, with all its peculiarities, is a vital factor in the formation of one's art, whether as a wordsmith, a director, or a live interpreter. With great emphasis, Marie affirms that she is Malcolm's last chance, the one he ought to cling to with all his might. Recalling their time together, she reminisces on how they have been each other's confidantes from the moment they met. But as she expresses her sentiments, her emotions get the better of her, and she breaks down in tears, wishing Malcolm would know how much he means to her. Marie yearns to hear sweet words of appreciation from her beloved Malcolm. She longs for him to see the beauty in her every flaw, to admire her mundane acts of kindness, and to cherish the intimacy they share. She desires him to recognize her as the driving force behind their creative endeavors, to acknowledge her sagacity, her authenticity, and her unrelenting patience. Above all, she wants him to value her for simply being herself. Overwhelmed with emotions, Malcolm's heart is stirred. His eyes glisten with tears as he realizes the depth of his love for Marie. He knows he must express his feelings before it's too late. With trembling lips, he pours out his heart, telling her how much he loves her. Marie seeks a moment of solitude in the bathroom as she brushes her teeth. Her mind races with questions and doubts. Shortly after, she goes back to the room and sees him lying there, where she joins him. In that moment of silence, Malcolm humbly apologizes for his actions. Marie responds by turning off the lights without uttering a single word. The next morning, Malcolm wakes up to find Marie missing, sending him into a frenzy as he scours the house for any trace of her. But alas, she is nowhere to be found. Just as hope fades, Malcolm spots her standing on a hill in the distance. As he approaches her, the camera captures their final moments together, standing shoulder to shoulder and gazing out into the vast expanse of the world beyond. And with that, the film ends, leaving the audience with the enigma that relationships are not easy and require constant communication. Unresolved issues and past traumas can resurface at any time and affect the dynamic between two people, even when things seem to be going well. Relationships are a journey filled with ups and downs, twists and turns, but ultimately, it is the effort we put into them that makes them worthwhile. And as Malcolm and Marie stand together, gazing out into the horizon, we are reminded that the journey of love is never truly over.